All right, today in the news, a story's been floating around about the United States government considering putting sanctions on fellow NATO members because apparently, according to the United States, they're not compliant enough. And particularly Spain, of course, has been mentioned because Spain, for example, didn't allow the United States to use their airspace or air bases in their fight against Iran. The UK initially had the same stance. Later on, the UK did allow the United States to use their air bases. But, this is another sign that the United States is apparently increasing their pressure on allies for them to comply and for them to join in their fight against the multipolar world. Now, what does this mean? Well, of course, there's been a lot of talk amongst many geopolitical analysts about, this is the end of NATO. The United States is preparing to leave NATO, and that will be the end of it. NATO is dead, blah, blah, blah. So the question is, are we here yet? Is this it? Is this the end of NATO? Now, by the way, let me say that I believe that it would be a good thing if Europe would learn to stand on its own 2 feet and stop its extreme dependency on the United States. I mean, it's been very dangerous, and it's become very apparent how vulnerable Europe has made itself with its dependency on the United States. So it's a good thing if Europe would start becoming more independent, right? I have to say that it is a little bit too easy to say that, our European leaders should have done this and they should have done that and they're spineless and blah, blah, blah. I mean, maybe they are, but you have to also take history into consideration. Of course, after the Second World War, every single country in Europe was in shambles, except for the United States. And they took advantage of that situation, and that's how they became the world's #1 superpower. They became the world's hegemon, and ever since they've been doing their utmost to keep that status quo alive, right? And one of the things they always have done is to keep Europe under. Well, not completely under, but under itself, And that is mainly the reason, I believe, why Europe has been so dependent on the United States. So it's not as easy as saying, yeah, our leaders should have done this or that. It's very difficult to break that status quo, right? But there are signs now that European leaders are starting to see that they have to do something. So in all areas, we're seeing Europe, in payment systems, in, technology. They're trying to create their own things. And I believe that is a good thing. And I believe that the rest of Europe can learn a lot from Spain, because Spain seems to be the front runner, or one of the front runners, in its fight for independence. Now the question is, what would happen to Europe and the rest of the world if the United States would really leave NATO, right? Well, I believe it would have major repercussions. So first of all, the war in Ukraine. I believe the war in Ukraine would be over, because I believe that Europe, certainly at the moment, is not capable of supporting Ukraine on its own in its fight against Russia. So the war would be over. Also, I believe that Europe would have no other choice but to work together with Russia and China and maybe Iran. And I know that this might be a little bit of a controversial standpoint for me, but I do believe that might not be a bad thing. In fact, I believe it might be a very, very good thing for Europe. I'm not going to explain why. We'll do that in other videos. But I think that this might be a very, very good thing for Europe. And as for the United States, well, I believe that their fight against multipolarism, which they're so obviously involved in right now, would also be over. I mean, many people already think that, multipolarism is here, and multipolarism already is too strong for the United States to do anything about. So they're too late. There's nothing they can do about it. But I believe that if they're even going to have a chance of defeating multipolarism, then I do believe that they absolutely need Europe to do so. And so that brings me to the question, Is it plausible that the United States is really about to leave NATO? Or could it be maybe that the United States and Europe are playing some kind of game, which they have done before, where on the surface it may seem like they're in some kind of disagreement, but in the background they're still working on their mutual goals? Could that also be at play here? Well, I guess we're gonna have to wait and see.